Why Mary? Why love Mary? Why do Catholics talk about Mary so much? In the last video, we talked about how when you have a relationship with someone, you're brought into the whole family. In this case, when you know Jesus, you're going to come to know Mary. But I did admit that one of these objections that's going to remain open is, but isn't Mary dead? I could imagine if I were a disciple and was following this first century rabbi, yeah, I might get to know his mom, might honor her as we see in Jewish culture, maybe even love her as a trusted person to the rabbi. I could see that, but isn't she dead? And now last time I said we weren't going to get into biblical apologetics, but I want to just give you something very briefly to look at here. And the question is, did Jesus teach the apostles that it's okay to talk to the dead? Is it okay to have conversations with dead saints? We're bracketing this whole idea that we would ever worship them. Well, I think the answer on just the level of conversation, or as we say, communion of the saints, really comes into play in the Transfiguration. If you remember in Luke chapter 9, we're going to take a look at that. Now, about 8 days after these sayings, he took with him Peter and John and James, and went up on the mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his countenance was altered, and his raiment became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men talked with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which he was to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep, but kept awake. And they saw his glory in the 2 men who stood with him. And as the men were parting from him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is well that we are here. Let us make 3 boats, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. What we have here is, besides all the incredible connections to the Old Testament, Exodus, Elijah, everything onward, besides all those neat connections, what we see is that Jesus is unafraid to talk to the dead. Why? Because God is not the God of the dead, He's the God of the living. Think of in John 15, Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. When you die, do you think you're going to get cut off of that branch, or are you going to be more firmly grafted on? This is simply the idea of the Catholic communion of saints, that when you die, you're actually more alive. If you doubt this, go look at also Luke chapter 20. He is not the God of the dead, He is the God of the living, and He's talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Jesus never would have taught the apostles that it's okay to have a conversation with these dead Jewish saints, Elijah and Moses, if we couldn't have the same conversations in the new covenant. Is Jesus worshiping Elijah and Moses? No. Are we Catholics those who adore the saints like we adore the Blessed Trinity? Of course not. You will never find a church father or any saint say that. But we do have a communion with these saints. And what is our apologetic? What is our biblical proof? Right there. Luke chapter 9, we have that, the Transfiguration. But I guess we know a lot about the personality of Moses and Elijah from the Old Testament. How do we have a personality, or how can we actually get to know Mary's personality? On the 3rd day there was a marriage at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the marriage with his disciples. When the wine failed, the mother of Jesus said to him, They have no wine. And Jesus said to her, O woman, what have you to do with me? My hour has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, Do whatever he tells you. So here we have it. Mary is not dead, she's alive. She is the one most firmly grafted onto the vine. And if you have a relationship with Jesus, it really shouldn't be long before you have one with his mother.